Welcome back to our Gardenscape, everybody. Mother's Day has passed, so now we are in full swing of spring. And you know what that means? Well, what that means for us. Time for a new garden bed. Today we're going to go from this to this to this. We lost one pair of boots, a pair of sweatpants, and broke a shovel to get here, but we got it done. Don't ask. To start this off, we staked out our area to get the outline of the shape that we are looking to cut out for our flower bed. There's a French drain on the side of this yard, so I have to be strategic about how I place the garden bed. We don't want water to flow right through the middle of our planted area. After walking it down and guesstimating the direction of the water flow from the French drain, it's time to spray our outline so I don't have to cut around the rope and stakes. After I've got a general outline here, I pull up the stakes and rope and spray down a few adjustments. Then it's time for the back-breaking part of this job. Cutting out all the sod, rolling it up, and moving it out of this area. The first day of sod removal went relatively smooth. I did most of this work off camera so that you guys didn't have to suffer through seeing the ugly faces that I was making while struggling to get the sod out. While digging out the sod, I did have some interesting finds. It was painfully obvious that the grub treatments that we have been using on the lawn haven't been very successful. About every 8 to 12 inches of sod I was pulling up, I was finding grubs under it. This is obviously something that will need to be addressed. Grubs equal Japanese beetles, which equal trouble for our garden. The second not so surprising find was a ton of rocks. With this bed being so close to the house and the driveway, I expected to find a layer of gravel. So before we could put our topsoil down, we raked up all the rocks that we uncovered. Before we can get to our favorite part of this project, the planting, we'll need to put some topsoil down first. We've got heavy clay soil here, so I want to put a top layer of some good topsoil down in order to give the plants a good head start. I want to give them a better start than some of the other plants that are planted around the house. I had about 1.5 yards of topsoil delivered. I shoveled it in layer by layer, ensuring to tamp it down in between layers. If we weren't going to be immediately planting in this bed, I would toss some mulch on top of it and let it sit until next year to let the soil settle. However, we're going to be immediately planting in here, so I tamped it down to make sure that everything was as settled as it could be before we put our plants in. Before we get too much further into this, let's go over what our vision was for this area. Before starting any project, I like to lay it out to get an idea of what it will look like. Here's a rendering of what I created with a mix of different plants that I knew we wanted to incorporate. On either side of our garage, we decided to add planters. In those planters, we want to put dwarf Alberta spruce. They're great trees for planters, and they make a statement while bringing some symmetry to the front of our house. We wanted to take this opportunity to add some different textures that we're missing around the house. We wanted to add in some perennial grasses this year. This is an element that we don't have anywhere else, so it is a good time as any to go ahead and plant some in the yard. I've been a fan of spirea and wanted to give them a shot. The multicolored leaves and the flowering potential should give us some good pop throughout the growing season. We also knew that we wanted to have some deep red for contrast as well, and there's no better plant for that than some coral bells. We already had our Ito peony ready to go. So we just need to find a spot in the bed that makes sense, a place where it can get the right amount of sun and moisture that it needs to thrive. And of course we had to throw in some perennial salvia. They add a pop of color wherever you put them without taking over the space, so they're a good accent plant wherever you place them. To complete this area, we knew we needed to get some height on the ground. So for us, we're choosing to install a dwarf blue spruce. It'll bring some different texture and some height to the area. Now that we've got our flower bed all ready for planting, it's time to try out some placing for the plants that we already have and see where we have room to add more. I'm sure you'll notice something in the mix that we did not discuss previously. Remember, we were going to replace those 3 limelight primes on the side of our garage? Well, through some convincing of my wife to give them a second chance, we're going to see how they do this season and let them settle in to see how they do. In the meantime, we've got 3 beautiful limelight primes ready to hit the ground. So we'll be planting them in the space. As you can see here, I've already picked up the planter, the Dolce Cherry Truffle Coral Bells, and the Double Play Big Bang Spirea. I want this area to be pleasing to the eye no matter what angle you are looking at it from. So when you're turning onto our street, walking past our house, or walking out the front door, there's always symmetry and there's something beautiful to catch your eye. I would like to set the hydrangeas in a single row going down the middle of the bed and then plant around them. In the coming years, they'll be the centerpiece of this bed. I need to get the coral bells positioned to where they can catch some shade from the hydrangeas. Now, these coral bells are darker, so they can take a bit more sun. However, this side of the yard is full sun from sun up to sundown. I don't want to risk them being tattered by the middle of the summer, especially once those 100-degree temps start to hit in August. The spirea will definitely need to be full sun to get the most out of the blooms. So this will be a balancing act of shading some plants while keeping others well exposed to the sun. In the 2 large rounded out areas, we've decided to reserve those for the dwarf blue spruce and our blue point juniper that will be moving from the other side of our driveway in the flower bed over there. And whatever we can fill around them, we will. I believe we've got some pretty good spacing here. The coral bells will be able to catch some shade from the hydrangeas at different parts of the day, depending on where the sun is. The hydrangeas are lined up right down the middle, around 2.5 feet apart. And the spirea are dappled throughout, where they will get good bursts of sun in the morning and will even catch some shade in that late afternoon. Now, for the fun part, the digging. I have to be honest with you. After the hours that I spent shoveling the dirt in and tamping it down layer by layer, it hurt my heart just a tad bit to have to dig into it. But I got over that very quickly because we're about to fill this flower bed with some amazing shrubs and perennials. In this section of the bed, only about the top 8 to 10 inches are topsoil. So we'll hit some clay dirt on our way down, and as we're digging, we may even hit a few rocks. As usual, we dig our hole wider than the root ball and toss in some biotone to give it a good start. And because I'm not sure of the nutrient levels of this topsoil, I'm also going to mix in some compost for good measure. It may or may not be necessary, but it won't hurt in giving them a good start. I would normally plant the root ball about 2 inches above the topsoil, but since they are being planted on a berm-type hill sloping down on either side, I only left about a ½ inch above the soil. I don't know whether this will make a difference or not, but we're gonna go for it. Life is an experiment, so let's give it a go. I repeated the same process with the other 2 hydrangeas. As I thought I would, we hit some clay dirt digging into this area, so you'll see me using my hands to break up some of it so that I can backfill the hole. I mixed in some of the compost, topsoil, and clay dirt together as best as I could in order to fill in the space. And there you have it, the beginnings of our new garden, all planted and watered in. Thanks for coming back for another week of our journey. We'd love to have you in our Gardenscape. And if you enjoyed this week's content, remember to check out our website and share, like, and subscribe. Bye, and we'll see you in the next one.